together, and then it's going to be the same effort. It's the swarm, it's the physicality, and then it's them playing together every single rep is the number one thing we're looking for.
Yeah, I'm a defense girl, so I'm excited to see defense this year, Coach. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you.
Coach, year 2, is it any easier to get your message across now that the guys saw it worked last year?
Every year is completely different. Now, this year, different than last year is, some guys have heard it for 365 days or, however long it's been now since we first got here. But, so a lot of guys, you go through the meetings, they know the down and distances. They know the field zones. They know the situations that we're in. They have a really good understanding or foundation of what the fronts are and how it fits with the run fits and how the coverages play with the run fits, how we're going to attack certain situations. And that's where last year, in year 1 in spring ball, I'd go up to guys and I'd ask Keontae Scott or Jacoby Thomas or one of those guys, hey, what call do you like here? And, early on it was like, okay, I don't know if that's what we want to do. And then later they'd be like, we're calling this here. Like, absolutely. And then that way you get a feel for what they're comfortable with, what they want to call, what we feel comfortable as a staff calling, and it all comes together because we're all aligned. And that happened last year in camp. And, I'm excited about this year's, the guys that are out in the field, the guys that are in those situations doing the same thing. Because in spring ball, it was further ahead than what it was last year. But it's guys playing different roles. We return a lot of reps. We return a lot of guys that have played really good football, whether it was situational or special teams or defense. But I'm excited about now some of those guys jump into different roles.
I want to ask you about replacing Keontae. He was the nickel primarily for the whole year. Last year got banged up, and then we saw kind of a rotation of guys there. What are you looking for in a nickel in your defense?
Yeah, it's a very difficult position because you have to play man, you have to play underneath zone, you got to be able to fit the run, you got to be physical and set edges, you got to be able to blitz. So you kind of have to do a little bit of everything. The nickel, it's kind of a box linebacker, it's kind of a boundary corner, it's kind of an off safety. So you have to have a very specific skill set, and there's been times where one guy can handle all that, like last year with Keontae. There's other years where different guys play that position in different roles, and I'm excited about the guys that are playing there right now. We've had different guys play that role in spring football, and even last year when Key missed a couple games, we had guys step up and play that role really well, and I'm excited about building that depth there and having multiple guys that are going to compete for it.
Every offseason, do you feel like you have to change anything, or do you feel like, hey, if my guys are better and they're playing free and swarming, that's the most important thing? Like
we will always change.
So, can you quantify that?
College football changes, your opponents change, your strengths on your team change. Bain's not coming out tomorrow to practice. Mesidor's not going to be there. West Passaic, the guys we mentioned, David Blay, the other guys we mentioned earlier, they're not going to be at practice tomorrow, so it's okay. And to me, it's always okay. What do we do well? What are our strengths? And then it's always going to be okay. Who are we playing? Like, are they physical up front? Do they throw the ball well? Is it tempo? Is it? We got to look at what is our opponent, and then we always got to work together. Okay, what do we do well, and then how do we limit or how do we take away what they do well? And that's where who we are and our identity will start to form itself, early in the season as the season goes on. But I feel like college football changes. I mean, what was something that everyone was doing 3 or 4 years ago, you may not see it at all anymore. Something that was 10 years ago might come back into college football, and we're always stealing different ideas from other coaches, and that's kind of in the summer when you get a little bit more downtime. That's what I'm doing, watching other opponents and seeing what different people are doing.
So, like, if an offense coordinator is studying your film from last year, can you quantify what % would be different? That they'd be like, oh no, we didn't see that.
We don't know yet. Camp hasn't started. We'll find out.
Fair enough. Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to follow up on what you just said. With the understanding going into fall camp season hasn't happened, do you have what is your inclination right now? What you do well with what you have right now? What do you feel in an understanding again?
We have our foundation, we have our system, and we've tweaked things, and we've changed like some of the things that we do, but we always have our foundation. We always have our structure. And then now, as we install in spring football, we make, this one, maybe we got to work on this a little bit. We need to see how to coach this up a little bit better, how to put this guy in a better situation. And then we, Coach Irv and the nutritionists, the strength coaches, sports science, they do a great job of developing our guys in the summer. And now they're going to be bigger, faster, stronger. Now they're going to have better situational awareness. Understanding things that they maybe did in the spring, now they can study all summer. So now we get to see, what the tweaks that we made from spring football, the little adjustments we made from last season to help the defense be in a better spot than we were in. Now it's about, okay, how do we handle that in fall camp to put our guys in the best situation to go be successful on the field.
Coach, can I just grab the mic?
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
So Corey, on the defensive line and in the secondary, you guys added some pretty big portal pieces. Not at linebacker, even though you lost Wesley. Does that sort of show, in the sense that you guys are really comfortable with what you had coming back?
Yeah, I think, you have positions where you lose guys early or you lose guys to the NFL, which is obviously the program goal is to take guys from high school, build them, develop them, and get them ready to go be successful in the NFL. And that's what I love about, the news out of camps right now is those guys have been doing a really good job so far early on in camp. And then our job is to develop those guys. And if, a guy leaves early, you want to replace him with one of those guys that we took in. And that's where some spots we did that. Other spots, maybe guys that didn't play as much last year, but they were on special teams. They were playing in certain situations. Or later in the year, like some of those guys in practice, in the playoffs, we'd go steal a couple reps when maybe we had an extra couple days, and some of those guys played really well. And they probably could have gone out there and played against A&M, or gone out there and played against Ohio State or Ole Miss or Indiana, but they weren't really in the rotation at that point. But their development from really when you start all the way back in March and spring ball, all the way through fall season, and into December and January, they're a different player. And now I think those guys are ready to go. And, the only thing they haven't done is they haven't played out there on the field in front of, all the fans here at home, which is, an electric environment. So we're excited to see them do that. But fall camp, we're going to put them in as many of those situations with noise, high-pressure situations, make the play on a 3rd and short, or make the play on a 4th down, or make the play in the red zone, and we'll see how they handle that against our offense. And I'm excited to see who steps up and wins that job.
To that effect, I'm sure you were asked, apologies if you asked about it already, but just in replacing not just great players, but great leaders, what was step one in that in the offseason to get to fall camp and know that this team is ready, those guys are ready? Yeah,
the way that we do our meetings, the way that we practice, the way that we we attack it each day is we put players on our team in leadership roles. The coach might not be in the meeting room. It's player-led. A corner's got to run the corner meeting. A linebacker's got to step up and run the linebacker meeting. A D lineman, and that's where those guys get a little bit more comfortable, because now they're uncomfortable in front of the room. They got to know all the checks. They got to know, what the communication is. They got to know where the fits are, or where certain things are piecing together, and they got to study it that much more. And then they start to get that, that role from their teammates, where their teammates know, hey, this is a guy I can trust. This is a guy I can count on. This is a guy that in this situation, I know he's going to know exactly what to do to get us over the top. And that's where you start to develop that. It's the culture in the weight room. It's what our team is off the field and in the locker room, and then it's in those meeting situations. In practice, it's all about going 1-0 every day. It's how do we get better? How do we compete? And then we want to put our guys in those spots where they're competing against the best players. We're going to rotate our guys around. We're going to put guys out there against different groups, against different players, so they're constantly playing at the highest level. And, everything from the outside, just block it out. It's, don't look at, anything. Right now, I don't even want to look at the opponents. I want to look at Miami. I want to look at our defense, what we need to do to get better. It's not even about beating the offense. It's about getting better at your alignment. It's about winning in your first 5. It's about your get off. It's about your first movement. It's about your block destruction. It's about your tackling. It's about celebrating your teammates when you do make a play. And then when you don't make that play, how do you respond? How do you get better from it? And are you detailed to come back out and go make that play the next time when you're in that same situation? So when we do get to, we're not on Green Tree, we're in a different environment, we're going against a different color jersey, now you're prepared and now you're ready for that moment. Everything else, 2025 is over. This is the 2026 team. Right now, it's all about getting us better, and that's the only message we have for our guys.
And the 3 layers of the defense, I would say, defensive line, linebackers, defensive backs, with the defensive line returning anchors like Ahmad Bowen and Justin Scott, and then you jump to the linebackers like the experience, a Mo Toure, a Chase Smith, who looks as healthy as he's ever been since he's been here. And then the veterans in the defensive backfield with the mixture of the young guys. What's kind of just let's start with the D-line first, specifically with those D tackles. I was talking with Moen earlier, and he was just saying how much Justin Scott has progressed, even from when it seemed like the light kind of turned on in that second half of the year for him.
Yep, and that's where this year's D-line is going to be different. Obviously, you don't have Mez, you don't have Bain, you don't have Play. So it's how do they work together? How do they come together as a group? How do they play together? Because last year they complemented themselves so well. You slide the one guy, the other guy's one-on-one. Just ship both edges, you got the inside guy. So, it's how do we play together? And that's where Justin last year, when he came out of camp, we thought he was going to be a very good player, but he hadn't played in those big moments. He hadn't played in those situations. Now, he made a play right out the, week 1, he made some really big plays. And then, I think it was like week 4, he's frustrated when, we go in the locker room after a win because he really didn't play. But, the way the season went, he continued to get better. He continued to work at his technique. He continued to work at his fundamentals. His pad level got better. His get-off got better. He played better with his hands. And as the season went on, he put himself in that situation where the best football he played was in the postseason. And, that's the goal of getting our guys. A, we got to come together. We got to play together because you got to complement each other. And then 2, every guy, like every one of those guys that returns, they got to get better at something. It's my movement. It's my getting vertical. It's using my hands. It's what's my counter. It's how do I retrace. So every one of them has something that we got to get better at, and now we got to see that early on in camp. And it's all about constantly improving, constantly raising, what we do as a group overall.
And the linebackers with Monterey, you mentioned that ACC kickoff, just another year removed from the injury. How big is that for him? I know you've had a long-standing relationship with him.
Yeah, so like last year, his best football was later in the year. And, early in the year, sometimes it was, limited him maybe a little bit with what we did, reps-wise, or in certain situations, or in certain packages. As the year went on, obviously we did more and more, but the way he played down the stretch against Tech and Pitt and A&M and Ohio State, Ole Miss, and Indiana, that was the best football he's played. Really since I've been with him. And he's played against very good teams at a very high level. And now, this offseason has been the first time he's had, the strength and conditioning program with Irv and the strength staff. He's been with the nutritionists. He's been able to go about that every single day. He's been able to take his body and continue to build it and work at it where we haven't been, doing something with an injury. So, I'm excited about what's going to happen this year because now, everything's been moving forward as we go through that process.
How do you feel like the depth in that room has developed and grew just through the course of spring and then through summer?
Yeah, I think, can you ask that one more time? Sorry.
Yeah, how do you think the depth in the linebacker room kind of developed through the course of spring and summer?
Yeah, no, I think it definitely got better. And, what we do is we put our guys where, Chase and Mo take a rep together. The next time it's Zeke and Mo. The next time it's Pruitt and Chase. Or the next time it's Wiley. Or the next time it's, whichever guy it is. It's Bonner. It's Jordan. It's JJ. This, Karsten. They're all getting reps. And they might be playing against, the first group that's out on the field, that rep for offense. It might be the second. It might be the third. It doesn't really matter. But you're playing with young safeties, you're playing with old safeties. You're playing with young D-linemen, you're playing with old D-linemen. So you're out there with guys making mistakes. You're out there with guys that have been in that situation last year on the big stage and playing at a really high level. I think that helps our guys to, hey, how is it when I'm playing with Chase? How does he communicate? He's done this. How is it playing with Mo? How does he run the ball? He's done this. Or, how is it when I'm playing with another guy like Pruitt, who's played so many valuable reps on special teams? He's been in those situations. He's been on the field. And now they start to learn how to play together. Who communicates well? Who needs to pick it up? Who do I need to pick up a little bit when I play with them? Who's a guy I can lean on a little bit when I'm on the field because he's played in these situations or he communicates really well? Because some of those guys, you lost that with guys that have gone on to the NFL. So now as we figure out those roles, I think those guys have taken so many big steps in their development and their growth since January 19th last year. And I'm excited to see what they do in fall camp. Now the biggest thing is you don't tackle a lot live, and you don't have pads on that often. So now when the pads come on, now it's to see who can step up and who can do, or who can meet those expectations when those pads come on. And we put you in those situations.
Thanks, Coach.
Defensive last one. More so specifically geared towards the terminology, like nickel. Everyone has questions about obviously big-time guys are replacing Keontae Scott. There's been discussion about Bryce Fitzgerald, Omar Thornton. Who could all figure into that competition?
Yeah, so the way we do it, we're kind of positionless where, up front, Armando last year basically played all 4 spots. This year, there'll be guys that play 2 or 3 spots. You might see him as a 5, you might see him as a 3, you might see him as a 2-eye or shade. We're going to put guys in different spots. In the back end, we do the same thing. You know, like the nickel, like we got to figure out who are the guys that fits that mold. Now, it's not going to be the same exact as Keontae. It might be very similar. It might be completely different because it's a different person. They have different strengths. They have different weaknesses. You know, how we go about it. And in the back end, it could be a corner. It could be a linebacker. It could, you know, we could use a linebacker out there. It could be someone from that safety room. But that's a position that's always adapting. It's always evolving. It's what style of team are you playing? What personnel are they? And how are they attacking you? And then who is those strengths on our roster to go play that position against them? But there's a lot of guys that have stepped up. You know, last year, like, you know, Omar did things really well that, you know, it could be at that position. You know, obviously we've got Fitz and, you know, Poyser have done really good things in that role or that position. But there's other guys that we signed in the freshman class. There's other guys on our roster that may be in different position groups that we've, you know, played at that position a little bit, and they've done a really good job, and we're excited about as they continue to build here in camp.